With infinite complacence, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
On this episode of Into the Fray, it is the 9th annual AllHallowe'en with Steve Stockton and Sysco Murdoch. Now, this is just last year, okay? This is the 8th annual AllHallowe'en. Last year, we talked about Sysco's Bigfoot sighting, the haunted Hoover House, very haunted location, the floating lighted cigarette, bloodline curses, Ouija boards, and premonitional sightings. Now, we were chatting before we started, and of course, sometimes the paranormal is a little more active on some years rather than others. So, Steve and Sysco might have some of their own stories, or they might just want to share some cool folklore or legends or stories or encounters that they've come across or heard of on the various shows that they do. We're going to talk about all that later as well, because they have a lot of shows that they work on, some of them together, by the way. And also, before we really start, I wanted to say a huge congratulations to Steve Stockton, who is now a father of a sweet little boy named Holden, who is about 8 weeks old right now. Congratulations, Steve.
Well, thank you. Thank you. The apple of my eye, the peg of my heart, he's something else. I was born to be his daddy.
That's got to be a song.
Yeah.
I was born
to be his daddy. Sounds like a
I'm
country song.
I'm going to write it right now.
But yeah, my parents were late in life parents with me. I was an unexpected baby. And here we go again. Nicole and I got married last year, in last July, not this previous July. And January 1st, what better way to start off the new year? We found out we were pregnant. So I'm a little old. I'm 60 and she's 38. But hey, whatever. We've got a healthy baby boy, and that's all that matters.
And he's got me as an odd mama.
That's right. That's like a godmother, but stranger. Holden Chandler Stockton, born September 5th.
I think odd mother has such a better ring to it than godmother. Yeah, it works.
Yeah.
Sysco, odd mother.
I'm having him a t-shirt made that says, don't even look at me funny. My godmother will curse your entire bloodline.
And she ain't kidding either.
Nope. I've been holding it.
People are like, oh, that's a cute shirt. We're like, no, we're not kidding.
No, that's a promise. That's not even a warning. That is a promise.
She could do it from states away, and that's where she is right now. You don't want to mess with the odd mother.
That's so true. So true.
Well,
so how's everybody been? It's been crazy. It's been a crazy year. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking all the stuff that's happened in the year. I can't even tell whether it's this year or last year. I mean, so many things blend together. When Steve and I get together,
speeding up. Time is just flying
oh
by.
gosh, I think it is. I think this Mandela effect is just really getting nuts too. It's just like so many things keep happening, and you notice another one and another one and another one, and it's just wow. There's somebody's messing with something. I don't know. They're moving stars around or spinning wheels or I don't know what, but there's something odd going on, and it just seems like there's more activity. And I don't know whether it's because now we always say as we get to Halloween, the veil thins and there's more activity and there's more communication and things like that. But I've just never noticed it getting more so. I think people notice it more towards that time. Of course, I'm not.
I've had people tell me the past 2 or 3 years that it's getting thinner all the time.
Yep.
It's not just around this time of year that the veil is thinning, period. So I think we're heading up to something here.
Yep, I do too. And there's a lot more reaching out. And I think that's why we're seeing these houses, these places, like these gatherings of small groups. I believe we talked about it last year, Shannon, when we were on the show, when we talked about Hoover House and these gatherings of light workers almost. Like they don't even realize, and they all come together. And when they come together, they have this perfect chemistry, for lack of another word, where I guess their intent and their abilities and their energy all seem to be in some kind of sync. And I don't think that's accidental. I honestly believe it's, ascended beings and spirit guides on the other side, and whatever you want to say, your elders, your ancestors. I believe that they work together too, to get this group together, to get them in a certain spot, and then it seems like they just continue to do these good works. As far as, for example, someone will show up, like a grandparents, or just a couple. They'll show up to this Hoover house, and they're just there for a vacation. They have no idea, they stopped in at Waynesboro on their way back from Antietam or Gettysburg or whatever, and nice little town will stop, and before you know it, they're sitting in the living room, and somebody walks through and says, guess what, your granddaughter is here and she needs to speak with you. What they don't realize is that granddaughter or that loved one has been there for a couple of days, just in anticipation for these people to show up, and nobody has any clue what's going on. It just happens, and it's going over and over and over and over again. And Steve and I are starting to see other places open up like this. The new Night House with wonderful Eric Sims of Unseen Paranormal. They just purchased a house, Night House, right outside. It's in Kentucky, isn't it, Steve? I think it's right outside of
Yeah,
Hopkinsville, or the
it's not too
Hopkinsville.
far from Hopkinsville. Yeah.
Those goblins were, boy, what a case that was. But again, accidental. And then all of a sudden, all these spirits, and when I say spirit, I mean the essence of a human being that's already crossed over and comes back, because they've got their whatever, they've got their papers. I don't know what it is, but they seem to have more ability and less earthly burden, if that makes sense. And I call the ones that are stuck and never crossed over ghosts, just for reference. So I think the spirits are really coming over to help a lot of these earthbound spirits as well, in large groups, to cross over. So that goes with what Steve is saying. This is what I've observed, and it's been over the past couple of years, but it is really ramped up this year, hasn't it, Steve?
Yeah,
With
I would definitely say so.
Yep. With all these it's so odd to describe, but it's almost like in the book The Stand, where everybody just kind of meandered in one direction or another, and they all kind of like fell together slowly over their journey, and then they just wound up in these spots and had no idea why they were all there. And then once they got there, they realized they were there for a reason. There's that kind of stuff happening, and I wonder if any of the listeners are seeing that around where you are. Is there groups getting together? And it doesn't seem like they're getting together so much to get evidence, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but it seems like their intent is to, I'm going to be here, and if the spirit guides need me to be here for a complete stranger who just so happens might be dead, we're fine with that. And I think it's so cool. It's almost like there's this conscious rising of
Yeah,
of
yeah, I
does,
get that.
does that make sense, Steve?
It does to me. Yeah,
Help me out here, Steve. It's hard to describe.
yeah. There's some like inherent fundamental change, and everybody feels it, but a lot of people don't even realize what it is. I think.
I mean, is that
It's so
something
true.
that you guys have been even physically feeling? Because you're both very sensitive. So does that mean that you
Mhm.
can physically feel these changes?
Yep.
Yeah, I feel something going on, and it's
Yep.
not good. Not
It's not
for the
good.
most part. Most
Really?
respects.
Some of it's not good. Yeah, there's both. It's like one side of it is very dark and the other side is so bright. And it depends on which one. It's almost like that. You're familiar with the tale of, as so many people are, the tale of the white wolf and the black wolf,
Mm-hmm.
Shannon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So basically, for listeners who don't know, a young boy, a young indigenous boy, pick a country, it doesn't matter. It's truth is truth, and he's talking to his grandfather, and they're by the lake, and he says, grandfather, I've been having these dreams. They're very troublesome. I wake up sweating and screaming, and I'm almost scared to go to sleep. And he says, what are the dreams? And he says, I have a dream of a white wolf, and then I have a dream of a black wolf. And when I'm having the dream of the white wolf, everything is fine. I'm walking along the river, I'm part of nature, I'm this, I'm that. And when I have the dream of the black wolf, it's more destroying nature, more um agitated, and all these different things that would be of the darker side, I guess. And he says, well, what is so troubling? He says, well, now I'm having dreams where they're both fighting. And he says, well, what troubles you about that? He goes, I don't know which one will win. Which one will win, grandfather? And he said, the one you feed. So I think it has to do with what are you focusing on? I think if you focus on, something wicked this way comes, I think you're going to see mostly that. If you know it's something wicked this way comes, but you know what beats it, you kind of focus there and go, come on then. You know what I'm saying? Did that make sense?
Well, I
Yeah.
know that it was very much like that at the Hoover House. As far as, you said this recipe essentially, as far as what people you bring in to execute what you want to execute, which was in that place to help people move on. There was even little kids
Mhm.
in that place. There was adults in
Oh,
that
yeah.
place that were stuck, and you guys were able to do that. And as you say, sometimes it is that perfect concoction or mix of people that are there with these varying gifts and levels of gifts, and you guys were able to do that. So I wonder if there's more activity lately, does that mean that places like the Hoover House then could, I don't know what a better term for this would be, attract or entrap others, or more spirits could be back at places like that? Does that make sense? I don't know if that's even a good question.
I think I know what you're saying. Sure. And I would say yes, if I understand it correctly. So what I think is it's not just the fact that these places, unbeknownst to the living beings that are involved, you might go, all right, I'm going to open this up, make a bed and breakfast, and we're going to have an occasional paranormal investigation. And before you know it, you have a place. 6 months later, you have a place that's completely different. And now you're doing nightly things where people are coming in and getting life-changing messages from their spirits. It's not just people that need to be crossed. Some people living need to hear something so they can move on, let something go, or understand that their loved one is okay, or get some kind of little. They don't really tell you what to do, like you should take that job. They'll say you need to make a decision. They'll say something like, because again, we have free will, so they're real cool about that. And I do think there's an amping up, but I also think I have a sneaking suspicion that something's going on, that the spirits and ascended beings on the other side are coming over to here to help more who are stuck and earthbound, almost at accelerated rate. I would be guessing if I said why, but it seems something is going on. Does that make sense, Steve? Can you add to that to make it make
Yeah,
more
I
sense?
don't know that I can add to it, but is again that rising and on both the dark and the light. And of course, you can't have the dark without the light because they complement each other. And if you turn one up, the other's got to turn up too. And I think that's kind of what's happening. And then these whatever's on the other side, the helpful, benevolent spirits are doing their part to make that transition easier. I don't know. I'm kind of lost here myself.
It is. Well, it's also, it seems like there's more breakthroughs being made. And what do I mean by that? Okay, so if you could imagine, all right, let's just take a battlefield. And you can imagine the different types of ghosts on the different, because we have to understand there are different types of ghosts. There is no ghost, and this ghost follows, it does these 5 things and nothing else. There's no ghost like that. Ghosts are as individual as people, and it depends on it depends on so many things. What is in their mind. What kind of anxiety they have going on. What are they aware of? What are they seeing? What are they feeling? What are they focused on? Ghosts are, like I said, as individual as we are. And it would be like going into a Walmart and just grabbing somebody and saying, okay, I know you can probably jump up and down, you can probably take your hand and open a door, you can maybe speak, you can see. You're doing a lot of assumptions, but a lot of those things could not be true as well with a living human being. Now add death to it. How did they die? all these kind of things. So it seems to me that there is a more easing of these troubled ghosts into almost a quicker realization of the light. Whereas 10 years, 20 years ago, it seemed to be a struggle to get, it is a like therapy. Okay, because again, you're dealing with an individual. Can you imagine just walking up to Walmart and go, hey, do you want to walk through the door? If you don't want to walk through the door, why not? Well, my mom, didn't pay attention to me, and my dad ignored me, and my girlfriend left me, and my dog died, and I crashed my car. Whatever it is that person is going through in their mind, now do they even know that their car hit a pole and they're dead? Now you got to explain that. Some do, some no. So again, you can't just assume that they're going to come in one way and follow all these rules, because there are none. So you have to just go down to your basics, and you have to go down to love, light, plain love, and that high vibrational feelings and understanding. And if they want to come through and they want to talk about, hey, I fell down the stairs and now I don't feel so good, but I don't understand why nobody can see me, and we're starting there, we seem to have more help now coming from the other side, and to ease that transition, if that makes any kind of sense. And it's not one group, Shannon, it's all over the place. So to me, that means that something's amping up either our consciousnesses, and we understand more about, and we care more. It's not just, hey, I got, an EVP of 3 knocks on my recorder. Maybe it's because we're clicking in and we're going back. Maybe that pendulum is swung where we're going back to, hey, this is a human being I'm talking to. This is a person who needs help. I don't know. It's wild, isn't it?
Well, the darkness that you guys speak of, are we speaking about people that have passed, or are we talking about non-human type entities?
I think it's both.
It's the whole enchilada, because you also have to understand, and I'm so sorry, I can't remember sometimes what we've spoken of years before and what the listeners may or may not know. So sometimes I go back and have
It's
to
been 9
explain
years.
something. Well, yeah, and explain something. But if if you already know this, please, I'm not talking down to anybody, but I just can't assume that everybody understands the ins and outs of this, because I don't, and I've been in it 50 years, and I'm still banging into things. You know what I mean? So what I mean is also that when you were trying to help a ghost or a group of ghosts, like say if you're in a battlefield, or if you're in some situation in a graveyard and you got 20, 30 of them gathered together and they're all paying attention, because this can happen. Okay. There are dark forces that are standing there fighting you at the same time, because they don't want them to go. They don't want them to cross. They don't want them to leave, because they're using them as a food source, as an energy source, through their suffering and their loosh. So if they're agonizing and in pain and depressed, and especially in a battlefield where they're going through, how they died and all this other stuff, and they're stuck in that kind of a loop, that particular ghost, and is going through suffering, there are dark forces that stand by and suck that in and take it in, very much like green eyes, right?
Yeah,
Wouldn't you
yeah,
assume
yeah. Green
similar?
Knight's the whatever it is that haunts the battlefield there at Chickamauga at Fort Oglethorpe in Georgia. That thing was seen in there while the battle was raging, in there sort of flitting among the dead and dying, apparently gathering something. So that's been there since before the battle, and then it's, I guess, very happy there after the battle, because it's got all that negative energy and pain and misery and things
Yep.
it can draw on. And even the park staff there have had encounters with it. It's not something to monkey around with.
Nope. And I would consider that's probably something ancient. It's either ancient or elemental, one of the
Yeah, I
two.
was going to say it's
Which,
probably an elemental
again,
or an ancient elemental. I think it can be
yeah,
both.
Well, what does it
it
look
could
like?
be.
Do we know what green eyes looks like besides the green eyes?
That's all I've heard. Kind of a shapeless form, or I heard one description that thought they saw some fangs or teeth on it.
Mhm.
Appears as a mist or a cloud, different colors, white, black, gray. So
Yeah.
it's
It,
some kind of
yeah.
shapeshifter for sure.
Yeah, I think you're right, Steve. And I'd like to offer too that in all the journals and things that it's popped up in, sometimes it's 30 years after the fact, and they're reminiscing and writing their memoirs or whatever. And then you've got the journals that were probably written that day, because a lot of these
Yeah.
guys, that's what they were doing, leaning against a tree or their
And
buddy's
the
back
thing
or
to
whatever,
remember,
and writing home and jotting things down.
anything's
Right.
eyes that bioluminesce like that, it's not a human. Now they're
Uh-uh.
animals, but they don't reflect
Uh-uh.
green. So
No, this
that's
thing isn't
something from
human.
somewhere else. It's not human, and it's not any kind of animal that we're aware of.
Hmm. But not just because if they may have described it in a different way, I'd like to offer that it may not be a shapeshifter. It very well could be, but it also may be that they're seeing it differently, because we know that people can be in a room and all see a ghost differently, depending on how it wants to portray itself in your mind. Sigh, if that makes sense. I've been on cases where three
Yeah,
different mediums saw the same ghost
and
three
described it a
different
different
ways.
way. Well, it's kind of like
Right.
the story about the blind man and the elephant.
Yep.
One
Yep. Yep.
was had the trunk, one had the tail, the other had a side, and the other had the underneath. They all were explaining or describing the same thing, but just from their unique perspective. And
Yeah.
I think it's like that too. I heard some UFO stories lately where two guys standing side by side fishing on a bank. One of them saw something, the other one saw something else, and they both had missing time. So strange.
It is strange, and I think it has an awful lot to do with, in the case that I was talking about, where the three different people with abilities all seeing the same ghost in different ways. One saw him as a younger boy, an angry younger boy. One saw him as kind of an angrier, middle-aged, 30-year-old something male, and another one just saw it as a dark gray to black mist. So now, do we act like, is that ghost having the ability to manifest in their mind all at the same time differently for specific reasons? Or is it on the other side, and the medium or the person with abilities seeing him differently because of some of their energy and something they've got going on? I don't have the answers to that. I just know that we're there and this is what happened. And then you try to sort it after. And the only thing I can go by is that once it seemed that everybody sort of, and with his spirit guide and the spirit, a lot of help from the other side, got that guy to calm down, he appeared as a 30-year-old man. So it's almost like their anger, their trauma, their drama, whatever it may be, is almost shooting out of them in these energy manifestations.
And it makes you wonder, is that what they're projecting, or is
I
that how
know.
the person is viewing it? Is that
Yeah,
their
that's what I'm
perception of it,
saying.
or is it a little of both? I think
You
it
said
could
it better.
be both.
You said it better. This is exactly what I'm saying. I think everything in the room, everything has a hand in it. So even when these groups get together, whether they know it or not, they might be there to bake cookies and talk about crochet. I don't know. Even if they're there to say, hey, we're going to do readings tonight. Everybody get out your tarot cards. We're going to have whatever. Because no matter what they're planning on, something different happens. It's like before they know it, they got people that
The best
tissues are
laid
being
plans of
passed
mice and
around.
men. That happens all
Yeah.
the time, in life and the
People are
afterlife,
crying.
apparently.
Questions that people have had for lifetimes are being, answered and, whatever, or solved. I had a guy, I think I told this one last week because I'll just mention it real quick. A man, it was a father, and there was so much trauma going on around the table. Here's the daughter and the daughter's husband, very understanding man, loved the man. Patience of a saint, this guy. And she had a lifelong trauma about, this situation where he worked all his life, planned meticulously to make sure his family was well taken care of. He ran several businesses and had all the paperwork and all the lawyers and all the things. And everybody was going to be taken care of. And some botchagaloop in the family got a hold of stuff and finagled some things and undid all those things. And when the man died, he somehow wound up with the money and everybody else got left behind. So the whole family is in this trauma. And every time they speak of the man's name who passed, they're either in trauma and drama, rightfully so, emotionally. And that's all they're focused on. And this has been going on for years. They show up, they're around the table. I have never met them, don't even know why I'm there. And I just know to trust the person who brought me. And I don't ask questions. I'm sitting there. And I'm not hearing any of this. Nothing. Hi, this is Sally and this is Ted. How you doing? That's all I got. I'm just picking this up when they're sitting at the table and from what they're saying. Okay. And I'm like, okay, I get it. I can feel this. All right. This poor guy, every time they speak of him, their grief, their trauma, their rage and anger, although rightfully whatever, is affecting him. Right. And he's just this fun-loving guy who at this point is going, look, he's got some answers over there. He probably doesn't have them all, but he is seeing things differently from his perspective now. And he's looking back and he knows that everybody that's going through this needs to go through this because this is their journey and they're going to work it through. And he just wants them to know that he loves them and it's okay. Let it go. Don't focus on this. Go about your life. The man who did this, he's going to have his comeuppance or whatever it may be. Basically, let it go. Don't make your whole life about this. That was his message, where they're upset that he got done so wrong and they wound up in this economic turmoil and this family turmoil. So when he pops in, he was a fantastic guy. I mean, he came in bright colors. He has like the golf shirt kind of feel going on with the shorts, great tan, fantastic smile. When he flashed it, it was like Dick Clark, that kind of feel, a little older. And he's got his back to them. When I see him, he's like above the table, about 2-3 feet. We're sitting at a table, at a little round table, and at the Hoover. And this is how I'm seeing him in my mind's eye. Like he's right there, but he's kind of floating above them. And they're asking questions and they're all real sad and everything is just, I remember seeing him and I threw out something to him and I said, you don't care a flip about this, do you, man? And he kind of looks over his shoulder and I mean, I could see him and he flashed that smile at me and he's like, you got it. And he turned around and he looked at me and I said, what's with the music? And they all just stopped talking. My friend Jim looks at me and just smiles because he knows I'm dialed in at this point. I'm not paying any attention to anything that they've been saying. I'm talking to him, And the husband just looks at me and smiles and goes, what do you mean? And I said, the song. What was the song? Who did he listen to all the time? And the daughter lifts her head up and looks at me. And I'll tell you, Shannon, it was the first time I'd seen her smile all night. And she just looked at me and smiled. She said, that'd be Patsy Cline.
Yeah.
And I just started singing Crazy. I mean, I sang the whole first verse of the chorus. And as I'm singing, he's coming down lower. He's like floating down. He's smiling. He's like kissing his daughter on the head, on top of the head. That little bit of love broke the barrier of anguish, that the wall of all of this that had been going on, it broke it just enough so he could reach in there and they had a moment of love again, thinking about happy times, happy moments, how much they loved each other instead of all this, you know what I mean? This gray, dark nastiness that had been going on in the family since the man had died. And as long as she held that, and I was singing, that's why I was trying to remember more words. I wish I could have took another chorus, but I didn't know the whole song. I feel bad because as long as I was singing that, he was connected in, and even the husband brightened up. Of course, they don't see any of this. I don't know what they felt, but I could tell you the look on her face was completely different until that stopped and she went right back into But what do I do about such and such? He can't get away with it. And she went right back into it. And he got up and he turned his back. He's still there, but he looked away. I don't know what that means, Shannon. You tell me.
Boy, that place is so active. Hoover House. What's going on at the Hoover House right now?
They might have they're running the weekend thing, so they might have somebody that's hosting like an investigation or something along those lines. But the real magic happens when everything is quiet and they're doing like table tipping or whatever, and a couple guests come in and sit down, and you hope for the best. But I'm telling you, if you sit down and you just open yourself up and say, "Tell me what I need to hear," it opens it up so much quicker for everybody. Because, oh shoot, well, I'm going in to tell her this. But if you demand, I want to talk to Bobby Jane from such and such, well, they got it. First of all, what's Bobby Jane doing? She might not be in the state of mind to be able to talk to you about this. She might not be allowed to, because you might be going through something you got to work through on your own without cheating. There's a 10 bazillion million things, and I don't know anything. There could be a 100,000 more that we're not even thinking of. Reasons why you can't get that information. So if you just open up and go, look, this is my journey, and I'm not responsible for anything anybody else does. I'm responsible for me. I'm gonna chug it on through and learn what I can and let go what I can't do anything about. And people did what they did, and man, I'm telling you though, if that story isn't a lesson on why isn't my mom, or why isn't such and such, or why isn't this person coming back? What's wrong with me? Honey, it has nothing to do with you or anything else. It's what are they doing? What do they have to go through? Do you need to go through this time in your life without that? And then, bam, you might sit down at the table at the Hoover House or at the Knight's Inn or any one of these other places that seem to be collecting and popping up in these little light beam places all around, because I've heard of them in the UK. This isn't just here. People are reaching out and they're connecting back into that light, and it's pretty cool, because there's been a lot of darkness for a lot of time, long time. And if this is next level paranormal, I'm here for it.
Well, here's an off the wall question for you guys. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Is there a horror movie or horror movies that hit home for you guys, that when you saw it, or those movies, if there's more than one, that you went, oh boy, the writers and producers either had this happen to themselves or they really did their homework? Is there any that stick out to you guys? I know that's just a really
First
awful
one
one.
that springs to mind for me is Poltergeist, but yeah,
What was that,
Poltergeist
Steve?
really did the trick for
Poltergeist.
me. It hit a lot of the buttons.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Is that all you got, Steve? Come on, you got another one.
I'll start there, and then you name. I can name a dozen, but some of the recent, like the
Well, give me
Paranormal
another one.
Activity.
Give me another one. Let me see. Let me see
Those
if you name one I got.
the Conjuring.
I didn't even see
Even
that
the
one.
Blair
Gotcha.
Witch Project, which is totally fiction, it draws on elements from things that have really happened in the paranormal.
That makes you think about the Pine Barrens, doesn't it?
Yeah,
It
it
always made
does.
me think about the Pine Barrens. It really did. The Blair Witch Project. But yeah, absolutely, Shannon. I mean, the top of my head, you're gonna laugh, but everybody needs to go and watch this. And if you can't find it, it's on my channel, Journey Through the Gate. I loaded it up there. I don't get anything for it. I just let it play because it means so much to me. But it's an Abbott and Costello movie made in 1938, and it's called The Time of Their Lives. And whoever wrote that knew what they were doing.
They were in touch. That's one of the best portrayals of the afterlife and the paranormal things that I've ever seen.
Absolutely. I highly
Costello
recommend it.
movie. Who knows?
Yeah. 1938. Now I know that one surprises you, but it's slap dab on. The whole thing is, it's got some history, and it's got some. It happens during the Revolutionary War, and George Washington is spoken of, and Abbott and I always get them all mixed up. Lou Costello. Lou is the little one, so he's a ghost. He's a Revolutionary War soldier. He had a friend who was going to go. I think she was going to go and give the message to George Washington or something. But anyhow, something happens to them and they're killed. They wind up getting killed, but they are cursed and called traitors, and they were lied about, and they were told their souls were told that they could not leave this well. And then you shoot up 200 years later, and new people are in the house, and there's a medium and some other people, and they see all this ghost activity, and they're always talking about the legacy and the curse. And what unfolds is absolutely amazing. Whoever wrote that had some knowledge in the paranormal, because I haven't seen anyone that's blown that away. Poltergeist had a lot of truth in it. There wasn't a lot there that was shown that I would say doesn't happen, except maybe the house getting sucked up at the end. I can tell you something interesting about the Poltergeist movie, if you'd like to hear it.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Okay, Steve and I were doing an episode is on, I believe it was called the Black Hope Cemetery. And in the Black Hope Cemetery, the situation, it was on Unsolved Mysteries, and I believe a couple other shows around late 80s, early 90s. And what happened there was a development was built on a cemetery called the Black Hope Cemetery, and it was a segregated cemetery, part of this town. And people who were living in this town still had relatives that were buried there. It was let's just say, the poor side of town, so they didn't have a lot of votes down at the the local meetings, I guess. And they went ahead and built the development, even though that they promised they would move all the bodies. Well, they didn't. They moved the headstones, just like in Poltergeist. And they built the houses. And this happened to be like a little cul-de-sac. I think it wasn't, Steve. It was like a little group in the house, like a cul-de-sac would be, and then down the road.
Just have one little neighborhood there. Every
Right.
single house. Every single
Mhm.
house.
Yep. So the story focuses on one family who, I mean, they had everything. They had from sicknesses where you'd be so sick the doctors didn't know what was wrong. You're in the hospital, you get better, you come back, you get sick again, all that stuff. Shadows on the walls, black stuff, goo coming out of the toilet, kind of like in Amityville. Slime coming out of the corners of the rooms, and black
Amityville's
slime, things
another
like
good
that.
one.
Snakes appearing in the hallway out of nowhere. Just name it. All kinds of stuff, ghosts, all kind of things. So this family goes through all this trauma, and of course they're fighting. Do we have bodies buried in our yard? Because they went to dig up a pool, and well, they hit bones. So it even got to the point where this lady, she had a pair of red shoes, and she went to put them on. She couldn't find them, and her husband went looking for them. I guess he went outside to wash the car or something. Steve can't remember what, but saw the red shoes on the grave of these two people that were in her flower garden. Like, the husband came and got the shoes and found out it was the wife's birthday when the shoes were taken. It was a blow you away story.
Yeah.
The
Just
Black Hope
one of
Cemetery.
those.
Look it up. It's a great book.
Yeah.
So anyway, at the same time all this is going on, a lot of stuff like you would see in the Poltergeist movie was going on. They then started finding out, because nobody talked about the type of people that were living there were older. It was the 80s, but these were older people in the 80s, so their culture goes back, and they weren't talking about this down at the grocery store. They finally found out that the house across the street was having issues, and the house next to that one's having issues, and the next and next and next. And that's when they found out they did not move the graves, they just moved the headstones. Big issues, big problems. Now, everybody would think that the movie Poltergeist was based on that case because they happened so close. But no. Playing at the theater when this was going on in their neighborhood. That's how much
How about
that's
that?
done, and how many cases there are like that. That was based on another case.
Yep.
The Poltergeist was based on another case. Isn't that crazy? So that's how many different cases where neighborhoods are absolutely, just blowing up with ghosts
And
and
I think that
all
happens a
kinds of
lot.
evil
There's
stuff.
Native American burial grounds. There's
Yep.
Revolutionary era cemeteries and things like that just got to get pushed out of the way, bulldozed. You don't know what's under your house. You truly don't. House, apartment building,
Yeah.
anything. Grocery
I just
store.
think that, yeah. And I think that's such a crazy thing. When I heard that, I remember telling Steve, I said, can you imagine, Steve? You're going through all this hell, and I mean, you got black stuff shooting out of your toilets and shadow people in your medicine cabinet and all this other stuff. And your husband said, that's it, honey. We're getting out of this house. We're going to take you to the movies. Let's go on down to the mall and see what's playing at the theater. And you can sit down as poltergeist.
Well, crap. This is what we're seeing at home. We could have stayed home and got all
Like,
this.
oh my God, no. It's just, and it probably happened, because I mean, that many people in the neighborhood. Oh my gosh. It blows me away how many real cases there are out there. And and it's so many. There's a few that get a lot of play, like if you say Amityville, there's very few people that don't know what you mean when you say it. It's gotten that famous. And at the same time that's going on, you got the Smurls going through their house. Stuff just as bad was reported to go in Amityville, but actually did happen. And then you've got all these other things all at the same time, and people still don't believe. It blows my mind. Blows my mind.
I mean, once you start talking about how the almighty dollar just rules everything, I mean, that's what it comes down to, right? Why would you just move the headstones and not the bodies? Well, it would cost them money, so they just didn't do it. So I can imagine that leaving things behind like actual people could cause a problem.
Yep.
Yeah. And it was awful for this couple too, the couple with the red shoes, because I think her first move when they found out about the pool, that like they were digging the pool, a man came from the other side of town and told him, I was here as a young kid when they were buried. The couple is buried here right under where you're digging. You need to stop because you're going to dig them up. That kind of thing happened. So she was mortified. And then they start going courts and developers and contractors and, going through all of that kind of trauma and lawyers and everything else, trying to figure out what to do next. So she would, plant flowers out there and everything else, and she's distraught by this, and rightfully so. And they're sick on top of it, and they're, her daughter's sick and in and out of the hospital. It was just awful. And in hindsight, you can look back and say, well, she was sick because she went to the house. But how many times do you go to the hospital and come home and then get sick again and go back to the hospital before you go, okay, it's the house? There's a process you go through of elimination. Not everybody jumps to, and it's just awful. And to think at the same time, it was going on in so many other places too, enough so that there is a movie that's pretty much describing everything you're going through, except maybe, the old guy, the old worm guy, which is kind of creepy. But, at least the ghosts and the manifestations and they were going through seeing stuff in the mirror that wasn't there, like their face melting off and just torture, and it's all going on at the same time. And you still have people, like you said, almighty dollar. So Amityville gets all the play, and they write a book, and Jay Anson, whatever happened there with the bottles of wine and the discussion, and this was fake and this was real, and whatever, that one gets the play, and everybody's scared of Amityville, and nobody even hears about.
It got the Warren treatment.
Yeah. And nobody even hears about the real families going through it, and that's pretty traumatic too. So it's real. It's real. Like we said, the dark and the light's right there. And sometimes when they mix, it's a battle. It's a battle for sure. And I think the ones that get misunderstood too, like, what I mean by that is like going to jails and hospitals and, where there's always been massive suffering, battlefields and things like that. People don't realize that you might be standing in an acre that has 50 to 100 different ghosts on it, and they're all different, and they're all going through. You might have small groups that they're aware, and they're aware of each other, and they're aware of the others. And then you'll have some that don't know anybody's there but them. They don't even know where they are, and everything in between. So it's very hard to put everything in a file. You kind of have to keep stepping back and going, wait a minute, let me reassess this again. What are we dealing with here? Let's sort this, because it's not fair. They don't give you the book to go with it, with all the rules in it, But I think Ghost, just to add another movie, I think Ghost got a lot of it right. I really, really do.
Yeah, I agree.
I
And
really do.
The Sixth Sense for
Yes, yes,
that shocker twist there at the end where he didn't
yes.
know he was dead. I think
So
that
good.
happens to a lot of spirits.
Yep. And the others in its own right. I mean, yeah, Nicole Kidman and her keys made me insane, but that movie had a lot of truth in it, especially with him. One of the poignant scenes there where you're not really understanding that the fog and the man that keeps coming up to her in the mist, and she's having a hard time communicating with him. I believe it was her ex-husband, wasn't it, or her husband that had passed in the war, I believe. And she's can kind of see him and can't sometimes, and she doesn't really want to listen to him, and she's not really understanding what he's saying. And this whole time she's a ghost, and he's a ghost, but he's a spirit that has crossed over. So he's got more understanding. He's left a lot of his earthly entanglements. He doesn't have his whatever wound killed him. I can't remember what it was. All that's healed. He's ready to go. He's not in his death state anymore. She is. Apparently, she stayed behind. And she sees him every once in a while, but she's not quite ready to reach out her hand and connect back. She's still got things drawing her back, earthly things, whatever it may be, that house, that
Still
room,
got
those
some
doggone
unfinished
keys.
business of some sort, as they say.
Yeah, those keys. So that's a very good movie for that aspect, I believe. I think that's really good. And The House That Would Not Die with Barbara Stanwyck. I'm here to tell you that one got it right too. That's a great Halloween movie. If you have not seen it, The House That Would Not Die with Barbara Stanwyck. A great ghost story. It's completely full circle, and everything in there I've pretty much seen happen on other cases multiple times. It's a great flick.
You know what movie I want to be true from start to finish? Every type of phenomena and every creature and every person would be Bram Stoker's Dracula. I want all that to be real because I love vampires and I love shape shifting and werewolves and all that kind of stuff. I
Only
know,
if Gary Oldman plays the part.
yeah. Oh, yes, it's
I
got to be
know. I
Gary.
know. Boy, did he not just absolutely. You know how they say that Dracula's got that hypnotic thing? I mean, that was all they had back in the day when what's his face was playing Dracula. They had to play with light and shadow
Bela
and
Uh-huh.
everything.
Lugosi.
Thank you, Lugosi, and his eyes. That hypnotic.
And he
Gary
could do
Oldman
that
had
very
it
well.
because there's not a woman walking that doesn't go. Gary Oldman is Dracula. Now, come on.
That's right. That is right.
There's
Even
nothing going
even
on.
when he was
Oh my
all
God.
makeup and looking
Oh
older,
yeah.
he would still put the glamour on you. I'll tell you that with that
Yeah,
accent.
oh my God, the top hat and those little John Lennon glasses. When she look, I did an episode on Dracula. We had a couple of shows on, but that scene where he looks across, she's walking. Winona Ryder's walking on one side of the street. He's standing. He gets out of the carriage, and he sees her, and he just stops and he says, "See me."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And
I remember that
she,
scene well, and it doesn't
oh my
affect me the
God.
way it does you ladies, but it is a powerful scene.
It is. And she just stops and she feels it. He slung his machismo so hard across that street. It hit the three women behind him, too. If you ever notice, see that scene again, the women behind him are
Yeah.
just swooning behind her, just like getting the
Yeah.
vapors. It was so funny. If you go back, you'll never see it again. I mean, he hit more than he was aiming for. Let's just put it that way.
Well, you know who's got the glasses and the teeth that were used, and the clown from the clown doll from Poltergeist. I just made my second visit to the haunted museum, and he has all of those items. I almost passed out just from seeing those things, so I
The
was a little bit
glasses,
jealous.
the glasses. Oh my
Yep, the
gosh.
glasses that you just mentioned, those John Lennon type spectacles that just
Yeah.
sat on the bridge of his nose. He's got a couple of Bram Stoker's
His DNA
Dracula,
on it.
and he has that damn
You
clown.
can clone him.
Wow. I don't know. Haunted objects freak me out.
Yeah,
I
me
don't
too.
know what it is.
Too much psychometry there for me.
I tell you
Yeah.
what, and I've thought about this for my second visit, and he has acquired more things on this second visit. And think what you will of Zach, we're not here to debate that and his tactics when he goes into places. I'm just telling you that the Haunted Museum, just in and of itself, is incredible what he has done over there. And if you too I don't even know how far in there you could go because it would be pretty incredible
I don't
to
think I could go
take.
very far.
Yeah, so I'm saying like I was thinking about you two specifically because I knew that this chat was coming up. I'm like, I wonder what Steve and Cisco would feel and see and what would happen if they would walk into this place because it's wall to wall haunted objects. And we're talking about, serial killer stuff. He's Ed Gein's cauldron. He's got the Dybbuk box. We have Michael Jackson's chair. He's got Paul
I've known
Walker's
people
glasses.
that had to leave that just couldn't take it.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd go in the same town. I'll tell you what, it takes a lot to walk on a battlefield. You know what I mean? But it's days you're preparing your
Right.
mind, your body, your soul. I mean, some people go through a big thing. They fast and do all kinds of other stuff. And I absolutely believe in all that. I don't personally do that. I do other stuff. But when you prepare your mind, you can get yourself to walk down into a dark cellar. You're in the mode. You're in the warrior mode, you know. But it takes a lot of energy to do that and to go walk into it. It's hard enough for me to go into Walmart. So, walking into something like that willingly would probably make me sick.
Well, and
stuff can really affect you that way.
he finally opened up the basement area as part of the tour, which has been part of a satanic ritual, plus somebody or a couple somebody supposedly died down there. So very interesting place. And no, I'm not paid by SAC to say that. It's just a really cool place. It's worth every
mail,
ounce.
Shannon.
What's that?
The check's in the mail.
That's right. It's on its way, I'm sure. Okay, so Steve, would you do me a favor? And I know that you've told this before, but I don't care because it's one of my favorites. Would you mind telling the pile of wallets story?
Yeah, that's a really, really creepy one. And that's in my Strange Things in the Woods book. The guy that I got that story from is somebody that I knew. He was in, I can't remember right off. I don't have my book in front of me. He's either state park or national forest. And he was hiking along and he had stepped off into the woods to relieve himself. And so he saw something sticking up out of the leaves. And he picks it up, and there's ID in it. There's cards. There's even some cash in it, maybe. And he keeps poking around in the leaves there. Turns out there's several wallets. And he's thinking, oh, my God, I found like a serial killer's dumping ground or something here. Wallets with people's IDs and cash and cards and things like that in it. Well, he reports it. And then after some, I guess, it wouldn't have to be extensive research since you had all their IDs and everything. Turned out that several years before, there was a hospital. And somebody, I don't remember if they worked there or they just had access to the employee locker rooms. They were stealing wallets out of people's lockers. And that was where they chose to dump them. So that was one of those, it sounds really creepy. And it would be really creepy to find all that in the woods, regardless of how it got there and how it came to be. But just the thought of that, finding a bunch of old moldy wallets in the woods and then open it up and seeing these faces looking back at you. I'd get out of there too like he did. He thought, there's probably a serial killer watching this. Then I better get out of here or my wallet will be next in the pile.
Yeah, I just
Such a creepy thought.
I just love
Is
that
that
one.
a creepy thought? Yeah.
Shannon, I remember you talking about that, saying that you could see that being filmed, the loots and everything there and just how that would look as a film, like a vignette.
Absolutely. Absolutely, because anybody would have that immediate thought like, okay, I know exactly why these are here, and it's not for a good reason. So time to go. All right, what about, maybe this could even be in your own areas, and it could even, I know that Cisco has visited umpteen thousand battlefields, but what about folkloric tales or haunted battleground tales? Is there any updates as far as Gettysburg or places like this that you've actually heard of? Now, a lot of these places have a lot of residual hauntings. We know that. Have there been any new updates on places like that are extremely famous for residual hauntings,
Steven?
but there's something new?
Okay, I'm going to lean on Steve on this one because he was first communication, but we also have to be extremely cautious.
Yeah, I know the one you're talking about. I was trying to find a way to bring that up.
Yeah, we have to be extremely cautious and extremely aware that there are many people suffering.
Still
This
reeling,
is
still
brand new,
suffering.
still reeling, still suffering, still trying to put their lives together. So we're going to be very,
Cisco's
forgive us
connected
if
with
we
this one too.
hesitate, but we have to be careful how we say this. Steve, why
Yeah.
don't you start it, and then I'll tell Shannon what I feel very
Okay,
strongly
because
is
I got
going on.
Cisco involved in it. I had a guy contact me on Facebook. I watch my shows and stuff, and he sent me a voice message, which he's never done before. And I played it back, and it was a few minutes long. And Shannon, it was one of the most chilling things I've ever heard. Now, this was right after the storm blew through just a few weeks ago that totally decimated North Carolina, and God help those people there. He was sitting there basically in the dark. Nothing was working. The power was out. And suddenly the phone rings. And he picked it up. There was heard like a crackle. No, I take that back. His power wasn't out because he was able to see the number on the caller ID. Anyway, it was a number he didn't recognize. The phone rings. He picks it up. First, he said it was just a bunch of static and a bunch of noise, like when there's water in the lines. And he thought, well, it's the storm. But he noticed the number on the caller ID, and he said, there's no way. All the landlines are down there. There's a landline number, and there's no way a call came out of there. But he said finally the static kind of subsided, and he heard a voice way in the background, kind of muffled, say, they're all dead. And then some more static and silence, and it disconnected. Well, he had his daughter look up the number, and sure enough, the town that exchange was in, that phone exchange, totally gone. I mean, wiped off the map. They traced the number back and found out the name of the gentleman that owned that number. He was a veteran, a military veteran, and he had passed away back in May. And yet this phone call comes through in September. They're all dead. And Cisco and I were talking about that, and I'll let her expound on our thoughts on that. And while she's doing that, I need to step away for just a minute. I've been sitting here pounding down coffee. But that wasn't just the most chilling thing I've ever heard. Wasn't it you, Cisco, when I sent it to you? Because I sent the original to you.
Yep.
And
Yeah, and I'm
tell her
glad you
what you
did
think
because
we came up with on that one.
right.
I'll be right back.
Go ahead, take your time, man. So Steve sends me, and you have to understand, Shannon, I joke and I laugh when we get together, Halloween on my show too. I have a way of that old soldier way where we joke about the most devastating things and people don't get it sometimes, but that's how we get through. And this last thing has been absolutely horrific. At what everybody's gone through, any storm, any tragedy, but this one was something for people in Tennessee and Georgia, Virginia, Florida, and especially Western Northern Carolina. So I had been working with people, and it's been wonderful for the paranormal side because I've given it all these years of connecting into the wonderful metaphysical world of these fantastic people that I call my paranormal chain of help. Down to the point where for sure you know this firsthand, Shannon. You'll say, I got somebody in such and such. All right, where are you? What county? And I'm like, okay, I have a team, and you reach out, and that's what I mean. Because of that paranormal chain, when the hurricane hit, I was able to reach out with listeners in my chat and as well as people that I've known for years to get people help, to get them information, because communication for days was very difficult. So communication, it was part of my world for, I'd say, at least a solid 11 days. And I was having a day where I was trying to connect people together through ham radio repeaters and drop off points and things like this. And I sit down and I said, man, I need to get my mind off of this for a minute and reach out and, start thinking about show and all this other stuff I got coming up. And I looked on Steve's messages he had sent me, and he sent me this. Darned if it isn't something that has to do with communications coming out of the exact place that I was just involved trying to get communications hooked up to, at least getting people together to communicate in that exact area. I won't say exactly where because of out of respect for the family. I get this video. This audio that was sent to Steve. So I always have to think and hesitate if I'm ready to accept this energy or not. And, and I went ahead and said, well, if Steve sent it to me, it's already been through the filters. It's supposed to get to me. I hit play. And I don't often do that because I have to be careful. I hit play and I hear this voice and he tells me the story. And then he says what the phone call said. And I'm pulling energy off of it. And I know exactly what this is. As the first time I heard it, as I'm hearing it, I'm getting stuff from my side. And you'll hear emotion in my voice because this is amazing to me. It never gets old when this happens, and we never take it for granted. But what I believe what we have here, Shannon, if you can recall the story Steve and I tell, and believe it's a chapter in my book, and the name of the chapter is A Tale of Two Bikers. If you recall Steve's biker that kept coming to him and needed him, Steve couldn't do it alone. He came to Steve. Steve had to come to me. Steve and I tried to figure it out. And then I asked for help, was sent somewhere. And the minute I sat in front of that person knew exactly why I was there without me saying a word, and connected right into that biker. And it took probably, I think, 5 or 6 of them to help him cross. Strangers helping strangers. That's what I think is happening again, Shannon. I believe that spirit guides, elders, ancestors, whatever, of this gentleman, and information I can't really divulge at this moment, but of this gentleman, because of who he was in life as well, saw what he saw, and with such emotion didn't know what else to do, and reached out. That phone call connected by paranormal means, your guess is as good as mine, to this gentleman's phone, because they knew he's got some abilities. He doesn't use them, and he's not used to saying that, so that's all I'm going to say. But connected in, and I'm going to say that the spirit guides on the other side knew doggone good and well he was going to reach out to Steve. Steve would reach out to me. I'd reach out to the people that I need to, and we were all going to come together in one of those momentary beams of light, like I was saying earlier, to, I believe, not only get him over, but I think he wants to take some with him. That's what I got. And if that's not a miracle of paranormal, supernatural, I don't know what is.
That gave me chills.
Honey, it's
the way that he said it. Did he say it? What kind of inflection was in his voice? Like, it was shock and obvious sadness. I get that, but what did this voice sound like?
I did not get to hear the original phone call. From what I understand, Steve can correct me if I'm wrong, I think the gentleman said that it came from a landline that was registered to this name. The name, of course, found out, and the person had died quite a few months ago.
Incredible.
Within this year. I believe because of who that person was in life, because if you knew his occupation, and again, maybe later I can divulge, but I don't want to do it.
No, that's fine. Yeah, I'd rather you not.
He would want to help and not be able to, and in some kind of burst of somebody help me kind of, whoa, it's that burst of energy we were talking about. It's that, the same with Gary Oldman, see me, and it hit her. We all have it. You see what I mean? It just comes out in different ways. It's just like PK and everything else. It's energy. And somehow that connected into this gentleman, rang his phone, from what I understand, a cell phone at this point, so landline to cell phone, recognizes the number local, doesn't know who it is, picks it up because he thinks he's trying to do the same thing I'm trying to do. He's trying to get supplies to people, and get communications to people on the mountain that are still stuck. This was, the week of. And he's trying to do communications and it's blowing my mind. Here I am at the same day in New Jersey, trying to set up communications in North Carolina via people in Tennessee and Ohio. It was insanity. And this guy reaches out, this spirit, I don't know what, I would assume at this point he was earthbound, but I can't say. I have no information, Who am I? That's a guess. That would be a guess at this point, that he was earthbound. Because if he was a spirit or an ascended being, he would have come through another doorway. You get my drift?
Yeah.
So this is just a guess based on theory, and connects into him because their people are going to connect their people are going to get with our people and we're going to get together, and somehow in this agreement of just strangers helping strangers and helping out a fellow human being. And I think that he's probably going to gather some, because that's what I mean when they're not doing just one, they're taking groups out. And that's amazing to me. It's almost like they're going around and collecting all the, I don't want to say strays, but you get know what I mean? The ones that are out there and that were kind of lingering on their own, and then they've called them in, gathering in people. It's wild. It's wild, Shannon.
If this guy passed,
it's interesting.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I want to hear what you had to say.
Well, if this guy passed back in May, and as you mentioned, we're not sure if he's like you said, he's probably not ascended because he's over here able to use phones and things, and who knows what exactly each level can do. But your guess is that he's earthbound. Does that mean that part of this, and if this is going too far, just let me know, that part of your plan is then to find a way to help this spirit who made this phone call, which is incredible, to help him to move on?
Are you asking me what my personal intent or my next move or whatever my thoughts would be to do next? Is that what you're asking me? If I had carte blanche in this and didn't have to think about the living's feelings, do you see where I'm saying? Out of respect?
Absolutely.
Because I'm not the only person in this. And I've already had to reach out and go, be careful what you do next. This is a delicate situation, because again, this is going to sound so, God, there's so many different things you could call this, but I'm just going to say it's what I believe. I honestly, at this point, would consult the dead before the living in this.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is ascended beings, my spirit guides, their spirit guides. Look, y'all know what's going on. You might have the cover to the box. I don't have it. I've got a puzzle piece here. I'm just holding a puzzle piece and seeing that somebody else has got one, and they're kind of fumbling with theirs and they need a little help. And I've been here before and I kind of know the way out, so I'm willing to jump in. But if I ask all the living, now I have to sift through all of that too. Whereas if I go to the spirit guides and say, hey, God, what do you guys need me to do next? I'm willing to connect this and get with whoever I need to gather the light to offer a doorway,
Right.
I don't want to get, well, they might not have the ability to sort whatever is going back here on earth with loved ones and stuff like that right now.
Yeah.
They might just need to, triage this and go ahead and go, okay, we're in the light now. Let's get better. Okay, now let's go back and, sort other things, because that's what I find. You remember what I told you about what was happening around the table with the older married couple, and they were so upset about the dad that the dad couldn't do anything. He wanted to help, but he couldn't sort through their stuff. They had to move through that. So my thing is, yeah, dude, I'm here. You called for help. We're here. What do you need us to do? What do you see? What do you need? Do you need us to connect you with your spirit guides and your loved ones on the other side to get you some help so you can heal? kind of like a hug. You need to know somebody cares. You need somebody to listen to you. There's so much there to unpack.
Mm-hmm.
If you did this in front of a live studio audience and gave the audience a mic, it's just going to elongate everything and it might mess it up. Does that make sense?
Definitely. Oh,
So I'd rather just talk to them.
That is incredible. That really
Totally
that one is very powerful, and I know that it couldn't be in better hands than you guys, that's for sure. So I think that
You gotta
Steve's
let it
back.
play out. You gotta let it play out.
I'm not 100% sure, but Sysco, go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you, your book, your shows, everything that you've got going on, please.
Sure. So it all happens in my house around Sunday nights, Monday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern. We're usually live, sometimes about 2 hours. We're long form. We talk a little bit about all this stuff, and we try to have fun. Sometimes we watch some videos, play some songs, tell some jokes, whatever happens. We have great guests, and Steve joins me on Monday. We also wrote a book together called "We Are All Children in the Wilderness of the Afterlife: A Guided Tour Through a Haunted Life," and that is both of us. And I really dig the way it was written. I wrote a chapter, and then he did commentary behind it, and it's a fun read. And if you're interested in A Tale of Two Bikers and what happened with going from Steve's prophetic dreams to crossing over a hardcore biker who didn't quite know how to get he could travel the world on a Harley, but he didn't know how to quite know how to get that Harley into the light. So we helped him out there. So that story's in there too. The podcast is Journey Through the Gate, and it is on YouTube as we speak.
Indeed. And that biker's story, excuse me, that was really something else. Cool breeze. Tale of two
Cool.
bikers.
That's it. Cool breeze. And Steve, I don't know if you got to hear, but before we get out of here, if you could just let Shannon know, I had stated that as soon as I heard the video clip you gave me, because the video clip I got was your friend telling the story of what happened to him. It wasn't the phone call. But just from his energy, what I pulled was this is another tale of a
Biker
similar
trail.
situation
Yeah,
with the biker story.
he didn't have the ability to record it. It just was on a
Right.
landline. But that was him telling the story that I sent you. But yeah, that was chilling. But I think it is. I think this veteran, he's dead. He doesn't know he's dead. And suddenly there's all these people from this little town that he lived in that's completely gone, washed away. Now you may have covered this in my absence. And he's seeing these people to do. He doesn't know he's dead. Or maybe he does, but he doesn't know what to do because suddenly, I mean, imagine you're a deceased spirit and you're hanging out, and then all of a sudden here's 200 or 300 people that you knew from this little town. He's only been dead since I think March or May, I believe. So, but it reminds me of that episode. I think it was a Twilight Zone, where the phone lines were down in the graveyard, and the people were getting the strange phone calls.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was her husband, and the phone line was laying on his grave, and she was getting phone calls that scared her to death.
Yeah.
And then she would and then by the end of the show, it was almost she told him to go away, and he did, because he always did what she told him to do. And then she wanted to talk to him, and she was just that was her punishment, and she didn't get to talk to him no more.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's similar, but I think it's interesting because you didn't hear what I said, but you pretty
Yeah.
much but we're here. Our intent's there, and I'm gonna finish
See
it out
what
if that's what
happens
we're
with that.
supposed to
Yeah,
do.
call on your crew. Now,
Yep.
it also reminds me of a modern day story where there was this huge train wreck, and this guy's family started getting phone calls from him. And I thought, well, he's calling to let us know that he's safe. And the calls just kept coming and coming and coming. They'd answer. They didn't hear anything, maybe just faint whispers or some static or something. Turned out he had been made deceased in the train wreck, and his phone was totally shattered, destroyed. They said that the authorities said there was no way he called out on this phone for several hours after that crash. He'd been killed immediately. So I think spirits learned how to use electronics to the best of their abilities.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Oh, it's incredible. Well, Steve, much like Cisco, if you would please let everybody know where to find your books and your shows.
Okay, my books are on Amazon, or you can get them directly from me if you want a signed, personalized copy on my Etsy store, stevestocktonbooks.etsy.com. Also, the shows, Missing Person Mysteries, that's the big one. Just over 308,000 subscribers. And that's just what it sounds like, missing persons and some mysteries in there. Cover some, take a little leeway with that mysteries thing. We got a lot of good content there. The audio of which is also on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcast, all the audios. And I've got some great compilations over there that run anywhere from 2.5 to 4 hours. So for these people that like to listen to my voice to sleep or relax, there you go. Spreaker or Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, wherever. Also, I've got Tales Untold on YouTube. That's my immersive storytelling channel. And that's just me telling stories. Some true, some fictitious. You decide which are which if you can't tell. And of course, I've still got 13 Past Midnight, the one that started it all. And I've got From Beyond, where I've to talk about UFOs and related phenomena and some other things. From Beyond, that can be anything. And don't forget about my radio show. Boy, I'm a busy guy, aren't I?
Yes, you are.
It's on the Clyde Lewis Ground Zero Radio Network. It's called Everything Out There. And that's what it covers. Everything out there. Everything scary or paranormal or strange. It's on Sunday nights from 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. And then after a few days, it goes out onto the podcatchers and stuff too. So you can listen to that.
And his cereal will be out, kiddies, real soon. Get a box of Steve Stockton corn pops.
Steve-O's.
Get your Steve-O's. Steve-O's.
Yeah, there you go.
Get a ghoul in every box. You have to dig down at the bottom. You might be careful now because there might be something with teeth in it.
It bites. We know it bites.
You don't want to stick your hand down there.
We don't have a cereal, do we, Steve?
Yeah, you got nine
one
other
working on
digits. You'll be all right
I
with
did load
9.
up on my Frankenberry and Count Chocula and Blueberry.
He does.
During
Yeah.
spooky season. I was showing them off on
Funny.
Cisco's channel.
You got the McDonald's thing already. I'm jealous. I'm going to get the
Yeah.
Wendy Boo bag and make you jealous.
The one
Yeah, we Halloween all the time.
the one I'm most happy with, Dunkin' Donuts has a Halloween pail. And I don't know if this is the first time they've done it. I've never had one before. And it's as good as the old McDonald's pails. Used to be the new one, the pails pale in comparison. But the Dunkin' Donuts, you have to buy 50 munchkins to get it for $13.
Worth it.
But it's worth every penny, trust
Yeah,
me.
worth it. Who
I love
doesn't
him
need-
because he knows that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, Shannon?
Yeah, I know, right?
I love you because you know that kind of crap, Mr. Stockton. I
He
swear.
probably knows down to exactly how many munchkins, and that's why it's awesome. Because who doesn't need 501 munchkins to fill a pail that it doesn't pale in comparison to McDonald's?
Yeah.
But
You
9.
said pail,
The
which made me
skunks
think of
and
that
rabbits and
bucket.
squirrels and possums out here late.
Yeah.
I wonder if Shannon's seen that meme. It's perfect for the end of this. There's a meme out there, and if you haven't seen it, it's adorable. It's a beautiful black cat, Persian, laying on his back with his belly showing and his beautiful feet, and it's got this expression on his face, and it says, "I'm not donating blood anymore." So many questions. Why is it in a bucket? Whose blood is it? All this stuff.
How did you get
I'm
it?
just like, how'd you get it? It's just, where'd it come from?
And
It's just
another
absolutely
cat-related one.
hysterical, but
Yeah.
it's perfect balance of this beautiful Persian cat, and it's just such a horrible
works,
joke,
yeah.
but it's the way life is. There's so much beauty in the. I guess it just depends on the one you feed, right?
Yeah.
Shannon, tell you what, it's turned up out there, and ghosts are popping up everywhere. We got more elementals and more different kinds of cryptids. We've got crazy people in the street. We might even have some zombies. I know we've got dogmen and Bigfoot. So
Yeah, definitely.
it's lit out there, folks. If you're into this stuff, you don't have to search hard.
To some of the stuff I've seen here in Massachusetts.
Or right here on
telling
the
you what.
Las Vegas Strip, right, Steve? You've seen that too. I mean,
Yeah.
with
Well,
plenty
I'm
of
in the
werewolves
Pine
down there.
Barrens in New Jersey, so we can, I'm
We're all
sitting
in some
right
bad
next
places.
to a very
I'm
sharp
just outside
machete
of
right now.
Boston. Shannon's in Las Vegas, and Cisco's up there in the Pine Barrens. So,
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, you
We got the
guys,
triangle of terror going on.
9 years in, I cannot thank you guys enough for
You're welcome.
doing this with me every single year. Next year will be big old year 10. And happy Halloween to everyone, and a happy birthday
Halloween.
to Steve Stockton
Happy
on
birthday,
October
Steve.
31st,
Happy birthday
Halloween.
to you.
Thank you.
Happy birthday to you, and welcome Holden. But next year he'll be a whole year more. It's crazy. I hope next year that we can come on the show and talk about the success we had at helping our gentleman caller. I would love to be able to get that one in the box. That would be great.
I will be asking about that update for sure.
Keep you apprised.
So
Thank
say
you.
a prayer out there, listeners. Just you don't have to be specific. Just have the intent in your heart and put that light out there. We could use it because I think this is a big one, and it happens a lot. When something like this happens, whether it be a tragedy, like the Titanic, that kind of feeling, that kind of heaviness, and we can lift it. You can lift it with light.
Raise your vibration.
Amen, brother.
And
Happy Halloween,
happy
everybody.
Halloween,
Keep your
everybody.
feet under the covers and your closet door shut, because there are things that go bump in the night.